Hi there, you're listening to the Guitar Speak podcast, produced here in Sydney, Australia. My name is Matt Wakeling. Thank you so much for joining me. Now today we speak to Gilby Clarke. Now Gilby has put together an incredible career as a sideman, playing with bands such as Guns N' Roses, the MC5, Heart, to name just a few. Now Gilby, of course, also has a great solo career that was launched in 1994 with his first solo album, Pawn Shop Guitars. I was very fortunate to catch up with Gilby on the start of his 2017 Australian tour.
Hello,
Hi there, is that Gilby?
this is him.
Hi Gilby, Matt Wakeling from the Guitar Speak podcast. How you doing?
I'm great, Matt. How are you today?
Yeah, really well. Hey mate, thank you so much for your time. I know you've got a bunch of interviews today, so yeah, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Great. Now, this is not your first trip to Australia. You've been coming pretty steadily for the last 20 years or so, I believe.
Yeah, I've been here a few times. I mean, I came a couple times with Guns. I came with my solo band back in the 90s. I came with Slash's Snake Pit. We came with Rockstar Supernova. And a few years back, Kings of Chaos played Stonefest.
Yeah, awesome, man. All fantastic bands, I've got to say.
Thank you.
So welcome back.
It's always great to be back. I love it, man. I mean, if you don't got a soft spot for Australia, then you got a dark soul.
I think you're probably right. Hey, you've got a great band as well. You've got the McDonald brothers, Joel and Jordan, in your band, and Bobby Poulton on bass. That's a really cool band.
Yeah, I met the guys last night, and they seem fabulous. And I watched the band play, and I had a really, really fun night last night. I had some good pizza and had a good old rock and roll evening.
Awesome. Yeah, that's that's the Monday night at Frankie's in Sydney, I think you must have been at.
That was it.
I was reading your guitar influences. I read a quote. It said that you're a mashup of Keith Richards, Johnny Thunders, and B.B. King. That's a pretty cool combination of things. How did you arrive there as a guitar player?
Well, it's funny because it's funny is one of my good friends is a writer, and he wrote my bio. And when he was doing it, he said, like, you're a mashup of this, Keith Richards, this, and Rick Derringer. And I go, because Rick Derringer was a huge influence of mine when I was young.
Okay. Awesome.
But I was like, I go, put B.B. King. Because, it's funny, all of us guitar players, we have our different influences,
sure.
And we also have our different abilities. And funny enough, when I first moved from Cleveland, Ohio to California, it was right at the time when Van Halen was a local band. And they were playing around town as well as Quiet Riot with Randy Rhoads. And you could see Eddie Van Halen and Randy Rhoads like back to back, like a Friday and Saturday night as local talent.
Okay, that's incredible.
And I mean, that was heavy. Like I said, I grew up with, Kiss, Aerosmith, Led Zeppelin. I wanted to be like, Jimmy Page,
yeah.
Ace Frehley. And, my ability was my ability. I mean, it's not like I stopped practicing, but, when I saw Eddie Van Halen, it was just like, I mean, man, he was an alien.
Uh-huh.
And one of my good friends, was at that time in California, was a huge fan. And it's funny, we used to fight all the time. I go, yeah, Eddie's pretty good, but he's no Rick Derringer.
I love that.
So, it's just, like I said, those are my influences. Like, I love B.B. King, man. I mean, I saw B.B. King up until the end. And, I mean, he's been sitting on a chair for the last 10 years, but... Yeah. I mean, I just love it. It's like, when David Gilmour will play a solo and he just hits that one note and it's just, just melts your soul. It's like, I don't know. It's just, that's what resonates with me. It always was. And when Keith Richards, did 5-string open G tuning, it's like, that just, once again, it just hits you somewhere. And I don't have those hands that Steve Vai and Joe Satriani have. It doesn't work that way, but just like anything, you do with what you have, and thank God, because, we wouldn't have the New York Dolls or the Sex Pistols if everybody could play like Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've talking about those bands. I mean, you've sat in with MC5, which is I know a Detroit derivative, but the same sort of planet as those guys. Tell me about playing with that band.
That is guitar heaven. I mean, I got to tell you, I mean, I thought, one of my attractions to the Guns N' Roses gig was it's guitar heaven. It's great riffs and it's never boring. And man, MC5 is almost like Guns N' Roses times 10, and what's funny is I was always a fan of the MC5. I mean, I loved their music. I loved that, the quality of the records, but it was really hard to distinguish what was what guitar-wise on their records, and when I had to learn it to do the set to go out on tour, and I sat down with Wayne to go over who did what, he was like, oh, you're not playing the part right. I go, I got to tell you, I'm pretty sure I picked it up, from the record. And he goes, oh, no, it goes like this. And then when he showed me how it really went, it blew my mind. It's like, wow, it did kind of sound like one guitar sometimes, but it was because like Wayne would do the low part of the chord, and Fred Sonic Smith would do the high part of the chord.
Okay.
And when I really got those distinct parts of what each guy did, it, like I said, it just took it to a whole new level for me. And like I got into it. Like every night we played, it's like, man, it was like those parts were written for me. And I always said when people go, I mean, you've had a lot of guitar gigs. I go, yeah, but man, the MC5, no, that's a guitar gig.
You mentioned Guns N' Roses. Of course, you spent 3 years there. There was an interesting period of the band in that they were moving from big clubs to arenas and stadiums. What did you take from that experience?
Well, I took a lot of things. I mean, there was a lot of, I think sometimes because Guns N' Roses just has this aura about it that people are attracted to the chaos part. But there was a lot of good stuff in there. I mean, musically, and once again, this is no slight to the original 5 guys, but, when Matt Sorum came aboard and then I came aboard, the musicianship came up, some. Of course, we don't have what Steven and Izzy had in that foundation of the band, but there were things that we could do that the guys, couldn't do. And, Slash would always go, hey man, let's do this or let's do that. And I go, well, that's not on a record. He goes, yeah, but this is what I always wanted it to be.
Okay, cool.
And like I said, and this is no slight on the guys. It was a natural progression of where the band was going musically.
Sure. And
for me, playing in clubs and arenas or whatever, I mean, I actually did some arena touring. I was in a band that opened for some big bands and stuff. There's a lot of weird things you get used to, like as a musician, just in the fact that, your amps are further away from you, so you have to adapt for that sonically. Other things of Guns N' Roses has this wonderful ability of playing like behind the beat. It's like you don't really hear it unless you really listen to it, but there's a certain swagger to that music. And, like, you put on a click track and that drum track is just right behind the beat. And that's what Steven really laid down on Appetite. He just laid down such a beautiful fat pocket. And as a guitar player, I push. I mean, we all push. I've been recording and producing, bands forever, and all guitar players push the beat. We're always trying to get ahead. And that's something that Guns N' Roses did for me, was really help me kind of get back behind the beat, like those earlier blues guys, like B.B. King is behind the beat. And, it's just a really, really great feel. And that has changed me as a musician and for the better. And those are the positive things, like I said, that I took from the Guns N' Roses thing.
Yeah, cool. Well, when that wound up, I mean, you totally hit the ground running. It wasn't as if you weren't doing anything before or after, because your first solo album, Pawn Shop Guitars, came out. You did a record with Slash, the Snake Pit record. That's cool. Now, your first record, which I love, Pawn Shop Guitars, that was produced by Waddy Watchell.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. Now, you've moved into production work yourself. I'm just wondering what you learned from Waddy and what do you enjoy about the production process when you're taking that role?
Well, when I got that solo deal, I actually wanted to produce the record myself, but the label wasn't going to give me that much money on my own. So they're like, no, somebody's got to watch you and your crazy friends. So when I saw their list of people, I didn't like anybody. Yeah. And then I just remembered, you know what? The new Keith record is great, and Waddy produced it. And, I didn't know Waddy before. Yeah, and I didn't know Waddy before. And so I met with him. We sat down. We played guitar. And the first thing he said to me is, he goes, "Did you know that my main Marshall Plexi head that I've been using for the last, I think it was 10 or 15 years," he goes, "is your old amp?" And I go, "Get out of here." He goes, "No, look at this." And he went into his house and he came back and he pulled it out. And it was my original Plexi Marshall that I had forever that, like, you know, I sold, like, who knows why I sold it. and he picked it up at one of the shops, and it's been like his main head that he used on all his good records, and not the early 60s stuff, but everything a little bit later from 80 on.
Wow, that's super cool.
So we had a connection, you know, and, you know, I thought by having Waddy produce the record, you know, it was, you know, guitar player. Let's have some fun playing guitars. And he also taught me, man. I mean, he's such an unreal guitarist, but he's also an unreal musician. And I like those ears of, you know, that great 70s classic rock, you know. I mean, in the early 90s, that wasn't fashionable to say, but I love that about him, you know. And to me, I really think that the record is that record because of Waddy's contribution. You know, I really think he did a fantastic job.
Yeah, cool. Nice work. Now, you're working on another solo album that's due out very soon. Where are you up to with that?
Well, the record is pretty much done right now. I've been working the whole year on this new record. I've tried to make this record over the last 10 years, and every time I got together to track like 2 or 3 songs, I could never seem to like finish the lyrics. You know, the answer was they weren't good enough, you know, and it's really hard to be that guy, you know, to you know, censor yourself, to edit yourself. You go, are they good enough? So at the beginning of this year, I had a good handful of songs I felt pretty good about, and I started tracking them and just kind of kept going until I got 10 songs done. And it's done right now. It's in the mixing stages, and I'm hoping to get it out first quarter of next year because, like I said, for the most part, it's done. It just needs to get wrapped up in the business part.
So this is actually your first solo album in some time, so I'm sure it's eagerly awaited. Yeah,
I mean, this record is, to me, all these records are like one continuous record, to be honest. You know, I mean, it's like I always say, I make a record that I would want to listen to. I made a record that I would want to buy. I got to please myself first. I can't guess what other people want or what other people like.
Sure.
And therefore, it still starts with a good song. You know, am I happy with the song? And once I got that, being a solo artist, it's actually great because I can cater the musicians to the song. Like I had Kenny Aronoff play drums on one song. I have Steve Perkins from Jane's Addiction is on like 4 songs, you know, and awesome. Matt Starr, like I can really cater, you know, the guys to the songs to make it unique.
Yeah, cool. That's fantastic. Hey, Gilby, it's been awesome talking. I've got to let you go in a moment because, as we said, you've got a really busy schedule. And you got your first rehearsal tonight. Joel says...
Yes, I do with the guys. I'm excited, man. When they were playing last night, I was blown away, man.
Yeah, Joel, we were just talking over Facebook this morning. He was super pumped, so he's saying... yeah, you can't wait. Last question then for you. What guitars have you brought for touring?
I brought my Les Paul, my 60s Les Paul Classic.
Awesome. So
usually I bring my Zemaitis, but the switch selector switch broke on it, and I just didn't have time. It was in my traveling case, and when I picked it up, it was broken. I didn't have time to fix it. So the good old black Les Paul is coming with me.
Nice. Just one guitar for the tour?
Yeah. I don't know if we're going to have another guitar player with me. I mean, I like having 2 guitar players. It's just over the years we've just kind of adapted to being a 3-piece. So we'll see how it works out.
Yeah, cool, awesome. All right, well, hey Gilby, thanks so much. Really great to meet you, and have a great time on your Australian tour.
Great. I hope to see you at one of the shows then. Take care.
All right, there you have it. My conversation with Gilby Clarke, and you know, even though it was a small window of opportunity to speak to him, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and hope you did as well. Now, of course, during the interview, I mentioned our friend Joel McDonald, a fantastic guitar player, and he was playing alongside Gilby on this tour. Make sure you check out that interview with Joel if you haven't heard it yet on the Guitar Speak podcast. I'll leave a link up in the show notes so you can easily find that. All right, now remember, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook and a little bit on Twitter. Not much, but we're there. You can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio or iHeartRadio, and pretty much anywhere you get podcasts from nowadays. You can just look us up, Guitar Speak Podcast, and you can have our episodes delivered to your device every single time they come out. All right, thank you so much for joining me. My name's Matt Wakeling, and you've been listening to the Guitar Speak Podcast. We'll catch you next time.